2025 Ironman Lake Placid. This one's taking place July 20th, 2025. These video clips are exactly what you're going to see. That's on the bike course right before you get down to the Keene descent. This is the river, and this is the backside portion of the bike. This is again right before you hit the downhill to Keene. Great, great picturesque things. I believe that actually is coming back into town with the brick walls on the side. But anyways, lake swim, hilly bike, rolling, run, high air temperature 76 degrees. I will say that it's not uncommon for it to get hotter than that on the run course. Low air temperature 44. This is definitely right around where it's going to be, or has the potential to be, is probably the better words. I would plan ahead, make sure you are planning to wear some warmer weather gear, some sweatshirts, hoodies, that kind of stuff on race morning, just to keep yourself warm so you're not freezing cold before the start. Average water temperature is about 72 degrees. In some years, it has not been wetsuit legal, so make sure you are keeping an eye out on the lake temperature in the days and the weeks leading up to the race. So, course overview here again. You can scroll up here. You can see all the good stuff that we just talked about over here. We are going to be hitting the course maps in a second. Our swim is this guy right here. So we are starting off in that. This is the transition area. We are going to walk out of here on race morning. You will be kicked out a little bit ahead of time. There are going to be a whole bunch of stuff over here like Don John's. There's going to be lots of athletes congregating over here. It's going to be a mess over here. It's a wild sea of athletes. This is where intensity gets the better of people and people get really, really nervous. If this is not your cup of tea, I would highly advise you to, find a nice little quiet corner out here up until it is around your time to start getting ready for the race and then heading over to your corral your wave start. On to our swims out here. So our swim kicks off right through here. It's a nice beach entryway. There might be a rock or two in there, so make sure you do practice in the days leading up to the race. Awesome, awesome swim venue. You will find yourself having trouble to stop on the days before the race just because it is so accommodating. You literally just pull up to the water out here and you just put your stuff down. You go for a swim. It's awesome. It's the best. It's great. On race day, since you are going to be released in the time trial start, the corral start out here, the first couple of buoys are going to be fast. They're going to be furious. People are going to be trying to catch up with other people. People are going to be trying to leave others in the dust. If you are a confident, comfortable, capable swimmer, that is likely you. You're going to try to put a stamp on this course. You're going to try to get into a group of like-minded individuals. Even if you are not a super strong, confident, capable swimmer, your object of the game should be to get into a group of swimmers who are having the times of their life pulling you along. It's a straight shot out here. There is going to be a cable. Everybody loves the cable out here. It's about 5 feet deep-ish, maybe a little bit more, maybe 6 feet deep. Everyone really swims right on top of that cable on race day. And if you want a little bit of cleaner water, don't be afraid to scoot off, about 3 to 4 feet off to the left, and no one will be there. So, in years past, one of my favorite strategies out here, I was a confident swimmer back in the day, so I would go a couple of feet off of the wire out here because you can still see the wire, and if you maintain that pace off of the wire, you can swim all by yourself out here, and that really gets you out of the groups, out of the riffraff, and you can kind of swim your own race, which I always liked and appreciated and valued. If you are a swimmer who is not super duper great and you want a little bit more of that drafting benefit, that drafting boost, you're probably just going to have to be battling on the wire the entire time. As you get closer to the final stretch over here, you might realize, okay, I've gone a little bit too hard. And if that's the case, don't ignore that warning sign on our first of second loop. Do not ignore that right through here. If you have gone out a little too hard, don't be afraid to let others do the work or to just fall into your natural rhythm out here. This right-hand bend, it's not a curve like that on race day. It will be just a nice right angle. When you do hit this bend, don't overthink it. It's a right-hand turn. What is common for this course is you will turn on race day and you will go directly into the sun. So you'll have really comfortable swim all the way out and then bang, you'll be hit with that sun. This section out here on the top, on the first and second loop, is a common place for athletes to really, really slow. They're really swimming on the wire. They're using it as a sight line. They're not having to sight excessively in this race because they're just watching the wire. And then when you get out here, a lot of athletes lose the wire. They're hit with the sun and it's just just a perfect storm and everybody really slows down out there. Again, I'd say this in a lot of the videos, a lot of the breakdowns. It's a right-hand turn. Don't overthink it. Just, swim right, keep going, and you will find that you will pass a ton of people. You might even catch the group in front of you if you play your cards right. This is a great jumping point right here from one group to the other with minimal effort required if you just simply maintain your race right here. On the way back in, things change a little bit, right? On the way out, you are swimming away from the race venue, and on the way back, you are swimming to it, obviously, but what is difficult for a lot of people is you can see everything that's going on in the race venue, right? You could see athletes, you could see spectators, you could see all kinds of energy and excitement, and you want to be there. And a lot of athletes, they see this, and it obviously when you get closer, it becomes a little more clear. And as it gets clearer, what everyone wants to do is motor, 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 and they just keep their foot on the pedal. They keep revving that engine all the way in. They hit the beach right here, and they cramp because they've gone way too hard for the last 3 or 4 buoys coming into the shore out here. Make sure you are planning this water exit like you would for just a regular water exit, just a one and done loop course. We have 2 loops on this course, so we have to be, we got to be ready to go vertical. If you're not ready to go vertical, this is an easy spot for you to kind of pull a cramp, pull your calf, that kind of stuff. Easy, easy scenario. What you will also find is similar to the top of the course, on the bottom of the course, a lot of athletes really, really slow down, especially in this area. This is low-hanging fruit right here, but this area right here, this section is one where almost everyone slows down. The wire disappears. You got to go to the dock. You got to get past it, take the right, and everyone kind of loses sight because it's something different on race day. Don't overthink it. You swim. You've gotten this far in the race. You've done all the training. Just maintain your pace right here, and you will find you are passing people left and right with ease. With ease. Another huge mistake that a lot of people do on loop 1 and 2 is excessively sight in these 2 areas. Maintain your sight patterns unless you are one of those people just watching the wire the entire time. Make sure you are just swimming out here on race day. A lot of people just really overthink it. They sight every 2 to 3 strokes, and that really, really tires them out, slows them down, and opens themselves up to a lot of other issues because they're swimming vastly different than what they normally would. So, once you get back in, things do change a little bit. Most people will experience a totally different way out than on the first loop. First loop, you're going to find you're battling other people, jockeying for position. On the second loop, things are a little more calm. You're around people more your ability. Everyone's kind of streamlined. Everyone has a like-minded thing. Let's just get this swim done. Let's get out onto the run. So on this way out, it's pretty docile for the most part. Faster swimmers, you're going to have a really, really fun time during this section, but once you get to this turn, that's likely going to be the last time you experience that. These are my sub-hour athletes, right? Sub-hour athletes on the second time around at this point, you're probably going to start to run into the backlog of people, and especially on this section. On the way back in for my faster swimmers, you are going to have to navigate other people, and you're going to probably have to leave that wire more often than not to go around them. It's just the way it is. Don't get mad at them. They are on their first loop. They're definitely going to be mad at you if you keep bumping into them and pushing them out of the way. So be courteous, be kind to all other athletes. Mid-pack to backpack swimmers, your experience is going to be a little bit different on the way out. You're still going to be crowded. It's going to be a little bit busy. You're not going to be experiencing that battle that you did on the first loop, but it's going to be a little calmer. You're still going to have to battle jockey a little bit, and that calmness is going to come on the second time you go down this straight for you. So while this one race is happening, there's going to be 2 different races happening, but the front of the pack athletes and the mid to backpack athletes. And just, if you're there, you're there. It's no big deal. Just realize you have to swim your race a little bit differently. No big deal. And that's our swim, believe it or not. Scrolling down here, you can see we do have a little bit of a jaunt to the transition area. This is another common place for athletes to really overdo it. Didn't have the swim you wanted, or you did have the swim you wanted, you're setting the world on fire, you're feeling great. You come down to this transition, this loop-de-loop area right here, you're zigging, you're zagging, you're running on the carpets, and athletes really, really fly here, especially during this stretch right here. It's a downhill going to the transition area, and then Once you get there, you're flying. You have to put the brakes on, do a sharp left-hand turn, sharp right-hand turn. A lot of athletes slip going into the transition area because, you're going at a good little clip and you literally have a 90-degree turn with no other barrier right there. So you have to really, really watch out right there. A lot of athletes trip and fall going into the transition. Be smart out there on race day. Be smart. Once you do get to the transition area, it's a pretty straightforward one of my favorite transition zones in the sport. And this is our bike out here, similar to the swim. This is going to be a rolling pattern throughout the day. The bike is a 2-loop bike, so you are going to experience this twice, same as the swim. And then the run, believe it or not, is also a 2-loop run. 8 stations out on course. You're going to have your first one right here up for this first turnaround. You're going to turn back around, climb up a little bit more, and then you're going to hit the downhill, everyone's favorite, all the way to Keene. Once you get back over here, a flatter section, a little rolling section, you're going to experience your second aid station out here. Rolling up through J out here, you're going to hang a right-hand turn, go with the covered bridges, and you are going to not have an aid station until you're climbing up out of J out here for your third aid station. Fourth aid station, you're going to hit Wilmington right around here, hanging that left-hand turn, hitting the headwinds, and you are rolling right along the river back up to the lake out here for your fourth aid station. Fifth aid station out on course is happening right around the Three Bears territory, but we're going to talk about that. It's probably going to happen a little bit before that. And believe it or not, your sixth aid and final aid station, each loop is going to happen right next to Mirror Lake right there. And then the personal needs station is happening right here. So how does that look on the map right here? So on the map, this is what it looks like in terms of aid on the course. You can definitely see there are some bigger gaps on the bottom section out here. Well, why is that? Let's dive in and let's dish about it. All right, so I am going to highlight a couple of quick things out here. The first thing I'm going to do is highlight the loop out here. So this is loop 1, this is loop 2. Each loop carries about 3,500 feet of elevation gain, so definitely no throwaway course at all. What you should notice is, and let's highlight it up through this Keene descent out here. Thank you for zooming in. So for these first 16 miles out here, we have 890 feet of elevation gain. We also have 1,800 feet of elevation loss. It's a little bit funky on this zoomed in pattern right here, but I will let you know these first couple of miles out here are the hardest out on course. I will challenge anyone with that. The reason that these miles are hard are because of elevation, sheer elevation right here. During this section, you're going to experience a max grade of about 6%. In this section, you are also, first couple of miles of the race, you're going to have a huge adrenaline dump. You're going to be rocking and rolling. You're going to be ready to set the course on fire. But beware, especially in those first 5 miles. Backing up a little bit more here, let's talk about the transition exit. I usually never do this, but for you guys, we will. So this is where the oval, this is where a transition is. You're going to go down the mount dismount line is actually right through here. It's a nice little downhill, really sharp left-hand turn right here for a downhill. And then we have a right turn right here. I believe it is this street right here, because this is all downhill right here from the top to the bottom, all downhill. I believe it's this one. It's a nice little bump, little SoCal kind of esque road out here. Not uncommon for athletes to fly down here, hit this street, hit a nice little bump in the arrow position. They're rocking and rolling. It is like mile 0.1 of the ride, and they crash. They crash out here. If they don't crash there, they crash at the bottom over here down at Mill Pond Road. They will have hay bales out here, but in my mind, there's really no need to be flying at this point right here. Then you're going to be hit with a nice little chicane out here where you have a left-hand bend and then a right-hand bend right here before you get onto the main part of the course. One of the more dangerous, or not dangerous, that's the wrong word, one of the more technical starts to the ride on the Ironman circuit, so beware of that. But now that we've dished about that, let's back up and go to the next couple of miles that you are going to be doing out on your race course. All right, so these 10 miles, 830 feet of elevation, again, we already talked about max gradient, so we can skip that. But you're experiencing a lot of 4%. You're experiencing a lot of 5%, and it's just not stopping. So it's up, it's down, it's constantly a battle. In my experience, you're not going to be ever in the gear that you want to be. You're going to be like towards the top of your cassette, and a lot of athletes are going to be able, if you're running a dual chainring up front, a lot of athletes will be able to ride these hills in the big ring up front, the big ring in back, right? You're gonna be able to do it, but the question is, should you do that? And a lot of times the answer is no. You'll be putting a lot of your max powers in these first 10 miles out here. So be very, very mindful of that. Another thing to be mindful of, we're zooming in. We are just done with the turnaround over here. We've already hit the aid station on the way up. When we come back out, very, very demoralizing for a lot of athletes. They want to hit this turnaround. You know, they're flying on the way out. And then when they come back out onto the main drag out here, you are hit with that elevation again. It's going to start off at 1 and it's going to continue and it's going to not stop. You are going to top out at about 3-ish% out here. That's a lie. About 4.5%, 5%. Sorry. And this is a common place for a lot of athletes to just sky the power. Not something that you want to do. So be very, very careful of this. After you go through here, right, this section out here, and this initial downhill is going to be the point where everyone says, all right, let's ride. I got a nice downhill to Keene. Let's fly. They will fly down this hill. And during these next little lakes out here, I'm going to call them these little water collection spots. This is another area where you are actually going up, believe it or not. You're probably going to have a headwind during this section as well, or at least a crosswind at the bare minimum. With that, everyone really overdoes the power during this section right here. If you are worried about speed wobbles and things like that, they are probably going to happen right through this section over here before you can really get up to speed. Then you do have a great downhill, and if I could actually highlight my thing right here, the downhill in Keene. Again, not as straightforward as everyone might think. This is one of the faster portions of the course. -5% is the max grade down. And this section in the middle is a section that usually gets a lot of people and catches them off guard. You're going to be flying down here. You are going to be able to go in aero position if you're super comfortable out here. When you hit the bottom, it might change a little for you depending skill level. But this middle section right here, you're going to have to work a little bit, but the catch is a little bit. If you overdo it, this is an easy spot to overdo it. Dropping down, one of the more technical parts happens right at the bottom out here. Be careful out here. Left hand bend on to or at Keene right here. There's going to be a nice little crowd down here. There usually always is, and you're going to be greeted by one of the flatter portions of the course. Usually you're greeted with a tailwind as well when you are rolling on the Ospel River, I believe. Climbing, and then you will steadily make your way up to J out here. Once you hit J, you're going to hit a right-hand turn. You're going to go through the covered bridge. Awesome, awesome spot to do it. One of the great pictures of the triathlon world out here. It's going to be great. Hopefully it won't rain for you guys. If it does, watch the standing, watch the sudden jerks of the bike. Definitely would not fuel over the bridge. Just be careful. Once you make your way back over here, this is another technical spot out here. It's going to be climbing that you don't really want to do out here, but you need to. Not just because it's the course, but don't overdo this section yet. And I've said that a ton leading up until this spot. We're at 30 miles in, guys. All right, 30 miles so far, and we haven't been able to really unleash the beast. But don't worry, it's coming, because once you cross back onto the major road, any athlete that's done this in the good old days will know that this section is always met with a nice headwind. A nice headwind. It's flat-ish, right? It's going to be a false flat on the way back to J. And if we highlight this section for you guys, right? It's a nice little false flat up here. And a lot of athletes really overdo this one as well. Again, you haven't really seen anyone like spectator-wise in a good little while, and you're just going to be out here with racers. It's really easy to get caught up in what is happening. But you got to be careful, because one of the hardest hills on course is about to happen at mile 36, almost exactly out here. Once you hit this section out here, this is a soul-crushing hill. This is the one that crushes the hopes and souls and everything of everyone out there, especially on that second loop. Aid station you're going to hit, and this is one of the longest straightaways on course that you will be climbing at a steady spot right there. I would find a good little gear and just get up it as best you can and not crush this hill, because if you look at the overall profile from mile 32 all the way up until mile 65, you're climbing up. You're going up. We haven't even talked about the most difficult part of the course, which is coming up out here. Once we do make this right-hand bend, and you are going to go on one of the older parts of the course for the last couple of years. I'm going to highlight this, and this is probably one of the last highlights that we're going to do. Okay, So I'll highlight in this section out here. The reason I've highlighted this is because of this section right through here. You're going to be greeted by a nice downhill once you turn off the main drag right there. And you're going to be flying, or you have the capability to fly. When you come down this left-hand bend, watch out because you're going to be going from a downhill to an uphill, and it's going to greet you, punch you right in the mouth, and it's going to not feel great. I'm not going to lie to you. This is where you experience your 5, 6-ish% grade, even if it's just for a little bit. Most people want to stand out here, especially if you're coming from that really high rate of speed. And again, this is another area where you can have the potential to overdo it on race day. Climbing back up into Wilmington, after you climb up that initial hill right there, you should be good to go going back to Wilmington. Once you hit Wilmington, you're going to turn right and left, be greeted by a nice headwind. I don't care what the weather says, the headwind will be there. This section looks really flat out here on race day, but I'm here to tell you that it's not. This jump up in elevation is going to come right when you cross over the river on the way back in. This is going to be the point of no return, I call it. Once you hit this spot, this is going to be one of the more difficult, prolonged parts of the course, and one that no one talks about out here. So just to put it into perspective for everyone, on this 22-mile stretch, we do have almost 2,000 feet of elevation gain. That's for 22 miles. So you could be having the time of your life up until this portion right here, and if you're not ready to rock and roll, it will get you big time, big time, big time, big time. So be very, very careful with that. Rolling back into town, ignore that little blip right there. It's not part of the course out here. But according to the maps that are up right now, we do have a little bit of aid station that is happening right here. We are, if you're skipping that aid station, you're going to have personal needs right there. This is always a really fun spot. You will be able to go pretty fast out here. Usually a couple crashes on this right-hand bend from athletes overdoing it into town. This left-hand bend, there's usually a huge crowd out here, usually a fun time out here when you do make this left-hand turn. Watch this right-hand turn, another dangerous spot on course, not because of the difficulty, but just because you're going to be going from a downhill to an uphill. And if it's wet out there, the conditions are prime for a crash. And then you're going to repeat the entire course. On this course, it is likely. On this course, you are largely riding the course very similar first and second loop if you are doing it correctly. Looking from a wind pattern, I'm really excited to show you the wind because it's going to do the exact opposite of what I am telling you it's doing. So this is Lake Placid. We are going to be riding this little road out here. We are cutting up right through here. This is J right here. You're going to make your right-hand turn. You're going to ride back up over here. Then you're cutting back up to Wilmington, a little offshoot, hitting Wilmington, and then you're riding back in. So watch this section out here. This is at 2 p.m. I'll change it to 8 p.m. Keep in mind we are recording on May 19th here. So 8 a.m., this is what the weather, or the wind rather, is going to be doing. Coming out of the gates out here, a headwind probably will happen. On the next day, this is likely scenario, same thing, and it shifts a little bit from day to day. In my experience, this is more probably the most likely wind pattern that we're seeing right now from what you're going to expect on race day. Rolling through these again, going through at 2 p.m., you could see how it changes slightly if you rewind the video out here. On some days, it remains the same. Get rid of that. On some days, it shifts big time out here. So just keep in mind that the wind will play a huge role on race day. Even if it's only 4 to 8 miles an hour, this stretch of road coming back from Wilmington to Lake Placid itself, very, very critical. One of the more challenging parts of a course, whether that's just Lake Placid or on the Ironman circuit itself. All right, so this athlete right here, this is going to be the course that we just talked about. Again, we're going to get rid of speed out here. You can see that this is very, very chunky out here. We have a lot of spikes out here, and it just repeats all over the place. So you're going to need a lot of fatigue resistance out here. You're going to need a lot of an ability to go above your threshold a little bit and be able to handle that and come back down and recover. So not crit riding, not to that extent at all, but you're going to have some ability of that, whether you like it or not, out here at Lake Placid. The power profile, and let's get back our arrow out here. Power profile, hopefully you can see that it does something like that if we are to just put it in a giant bin out here. Once we get past this section out here, in my mind, it goes like this with some spikes that are happening right around there, right? And that's pretty much your power profile if you want to just look at nothing else. You are slowly ramping up into the hill. And most athletes, what they do is they take this section and the power is really pushed up right there. And you want to avoid that. All right. That's a huge, huge mistake out here on the race. And athletes will do this on loop one. And then also they'll try to do it on loop two. And each time these sections of road, they really, really pay the price for. So just watch out for that on race day. I know I keep rambling on about it, but as I roll over here, watch the cyclists out here. So you can see where the wind is coming from, and before we do that, you can see just a great. This is what it is projected out here. I would probably assume that that is the case with those blue arrows out here. So as we roll over here, you're going to be greeted with a nice headwind, crosswind, probably a cross tailwind for a little bit of this section out here. And then it turns around once we are coming out to that turnaround point, but we do have to turn around, which is great. So we will experience a little tailwind, which is why this hill climbing up is a little more soul crushing than what it already is. Coming back, climbing up to our Keene descent out here. Tailwind, happy days, really, really happy days. Once we hit Keene, we roll back up and we are experiencing a tail crosswind as well. Very, very good stuff. And you push all the way to J with that. One of the more dangerous parts of the course, just because you're looking at the entire other section of hills and you're saying, I'm going to eke all my time back during this section. Be careful to fall into that trap out here. Most athletes will do that. Once we go to J, things do change a little bit, but for the most part, we still have that tailwind. And then when we roll back in, we have that headwind rolling back through J. We're going to have a crosswind going back up to Wilmington, and then it is Headwind City all the way back in, which makes those three bears even more challenging. Rolling on through the second part of our course, you're likely going to experience very, very similar wind conditions, but they will just get a little bit more aggressive as the day goes. I don't care what this wind model says out here. So be aware of that. So time analysis. Let's dish about what you can do to set yourself up for success. So if you improve your drag slightly out here on race day, you're going to save a whopping 45 seconds. If you increase your power targets, you're going to save a minute 25 seconds. This is increased by 1%. So you have a huge bang for your buck to increase the power, aka your threshold target out here on race day. Decreasing your weight out here, normally this isn't a great one. On this course, I would argue that if you did want to drop a couple more pounds, that would have a bigger impact for you. So I would try to be getting down to race weight soon-ish. If you're not there already. So improving your rolling resistance, you're going to save about 11 seconds out here. On this course, I would likely expect that to be slightly higher out here. If it was me, what I would be focusing on is not necessarily my drag. What I would really be focusing on right now is pushing that power out. I would also be looking at my drag, not for just aero the entire time, but there's a lot of places where aero can be maximized on this course. Also, if I could shave a pound or so off of my setup, you're looking at about a 5-minute savings out here. So that weight savings also can come in the form of bike weight as well. So just an FYI there. Something to keep in mind. Looking at our zones that we're going to be spending time in on race day, a lot of Z1 time. That is the Keene descent out here. Most people are not going to be putting out exorbitant amounts of power out here on the Keene descent. Zone 2 and Zone 3 are the dominators on race day. No surprise there. But you do have about 10 minutes of that Z4 in the 6 zone model on race day. Also, the A's that we have on our course, that's the aid station, so you can see where they fall on the map, which is great to see. All right, so rolling on to our run out here. Again, this is a 2-loop run. You're going to start right up through here. You're going to exit out the way you came in on the swim to bike transition entrance. So you're going to exit that way. You're also going to exit pretty much right where the finish is. So that can be a little demoralizing if you're a mid-pack or a back-of-the-pack athlete. But pay it no mind. Just ignore it. Don't even look at it. Make your right-hand turn, and out you go. You're going to roll down these hills over here, hit Lisa G's, and then the real party starts. After you do that, you're rolling all the way to the horse grounds. You're taking a left-hand turn, and you're rolling back through mostly what most people run on back here in terms of elevation. Hitting the turnaround, rolling back, you're climbing up a beast of a hill. You're rolling back into town, climbing up a very sharp descent out here. It's going to be fun, probably at the bottom, not at the top. Once you hit the top, you're hanging a right-hand turn. You're climbing up to where the golf course is. This is also, coincidentally, where the bike course comes in. So right at the Papa Bear here, they're taking a right-hand turn. You're turning around. You're going back down this hill. You are climbing back up to where the transition zone is, but you are hanging a right-hand turn and you are running along Mirror Lake. This is arguably one of the longest turnarounds in the sport of triathlon mentally. We'll talk about more of that in a second. Hitting special needs or personal needs right before you hit mile 13 this year. It is located on this side of Mirror Lake. I don't know if that's official, so I would keep an eye on that and keep an eye out and see if it changes in the next couple of weeks here or if it changes when you arrive at the race venue. Loop 2 is the exact same as Loop 1. What does that look like in terms of elevation? First, let's take a look at our aid stations. We have a ton of them. This is what it's going to look like about on race day. So 26 miles, we have about 1,100, let's call it 1,200 feet of elevation gain out here. You should pretty much see that it comes in a couple different spots. So starting off, we have a nice little downhill section. We got a flat section, and then we climb back up, and then we experience our downhill, our flat, climb back up, and then we're back home, free past Mirror Lake. So how would you attack this? This is how I would attack this and how I would suggest to attack something like this. First off, in these first couple of miles out here, I would picture this as kind of like a throwaway course. I would imagine you get out here, you start running down. The athletes that really, really push it coming out of the gate out here, you can hopefully see that we have our negative, our biggest aggressive drop coming in the first 0.3, 0.4, 0.5 miles of the race. That is not ideal, right? That's going to really load the calves. That's going to really load up the quads. So just be very, very mindful of that when you do go out, even if you are feeling perfect out there. I would hold back big time out here. And even when it starts to get a little flatter out here, I would hold back and I really wouldn't start your run until you get down the second big drop out here. A couple of reasons for that is you're going to have to watch your nutrition. Even if you've nailed your nutrition, something might be wrong. Are you hot? Are you cold? Whatever. You're probably going to have to solve a problem or two. If there's no problem to solve, happy days, great, but make sure you're keeping on everything there. And then once you get back down here, then it really, for the most part, right, I'm going to just highlight back and forth out here. 4.5 miles, 183 feet of elevation gain with a max grade of 3.2 that doesn't last for very long at all. It's pretty up and down even, right? So 183, 186, gain, lose. And this is going to be the point at which you know if your race is going good or going south right here. So I would avoid rushing to this point. I mean, I want you to get there. I want you to actually, go it at your pace. But the key is your pace. Think back to the swim. How are you racing? If you're racing out of your element, wow, I'm having a really fantastic day. Alarm bells should be going off for those first 2 miles. Set into your pace, find your groove, and then just start flowing out here. You're going to be experiencing your third aid station at about 5.6-ish miles, maybe a little bit more. But this section, in my mind, this is going to be where you start to really put your stamp on the course, not the first mile. During this stretch of road out here, there is going to be some shade, a lot of sun, open to the elements. So think back to that average temperature of 74 at the very beginning. If it's hot out here, it's not uncommon for it to be really hot out here. A common not pitfall, but a common thing that does happen out here is it will rain in the morning and be sunny during the afternoon. What that means is humidity is high, it's hot, and you're going to really experience all of that back through here. Not a whole lot of escaping it too. The trees and the everything just kind of trap it in. So it might feel like you're running in an oven at some points back through here. If it doesn't do that on race day, then this section is open season out here. But after you exit this stretch, you are going to be hanging your right-hand turn, climbing back up this beast of a hill, and this is going to be where you experience your max grade vertically out here. When this happens, right, don't feel like you have to run up this hill. This is the same for the first and the second loop. Don't be afraid to walk, run up this hill. A lot of athletes think that they have to run up this to get a great time on race day, and that's not the case at all. If you do walk up here, you are probably going to save yourself a couple of beats on your heart rate. It's going to be a great opportunity for you to kind of recover a little bit. How much time are you really saving if you are forcing yourself to run up this hill and you're right on the edge of cramping? So weigh the pros and the cons and what you need to do on race day. After you get up this is a great opportunity for you to slowly turn the screws out here. And again, we're at mile 9-ish, right? So you're starting to get deeper into this marathon back through here. Shout out to Schultes, which you will be passing. RIP. But as you continue on through here, you're going to get closer and closer to the noise, closer and closer to the energy. There is going to be a couple of pockets out here, like that motel out there. That's a huge place for a lot of athletes to really, really get going. A lot of spectators, and you're going to find pockets of awesomeness and then nothing, and then awesomeness and nothing. The key is to harness that power from the awesomeness and continue that on to the next pocket and the next pocket. A lot of highs and lows are experienced on this little plateau, I'm going to call this. And don't let that happen. Be mentally strong through here. This is one of the tougher parts mentally out here. After you hit the town again, you're going to be hit with a great vertical hill out here. I call this the stoplight hill back in the day, the degree hill. For the old timers out there racing up the hill. I forget what you would win, but you would win something. But this time you're going to hang a right-hand turn. You're going to climb up to the Papa Bear turnaround up here. And this is another area extremely open to the elements. If it's really sunny, that's just going to be an oven back through here. If it's windy, this is going to be a section where you're going to be hit with wind on the uphills and on the uphill and the downhill when you do turn around coming back down. After you hit the stoplight again, you're going to be hit with another little aggressive hill right through here. The gas station right here is a really, really good spot. Bowling alley, same thing. Where don't be afraid to walk up some of these hills. This is where the spectators are probably going to be the thickest out here on race day. This is also going to be in times where the hills are going up. So don't force yourself to run if you don't want to, all right? Enjoy the spectators, but don't feel like that you have to put on a show for them. You're going to be gone in 10 seconds. They'll probably never remember you again. So run your race. Use their energy to your benefit. Then one of the most difficult parts of the race course happens. I do want to zoom in for you right through here. I'm going to put it in satellite mode. Aid station, or not the aid station, the personal needs, they claim is located right there in all the years past. It has been located right here on race day, so it's going to be located in one of these two different spots out here. But back to our little mode out here. This little turnaround is one of the tougher spots out here on race day. And again, it's not because it's super difficult elevation. It's just because it keeps going and it keeps going. And if you'll look, right, you'll hit this little bend out here and you'll say, all right, I just got to make it around there and there's a turnaround. And you're like, oh, I just got to make it around there and there's a turnaround. And then you do, and then it keeps going. So it kind of plays tricks on you back here. Once you hit the turnaround, though, hopefully your motivation is back up to snuff because you are rolling back out. And the second loop plays very similar to the first loop. I will say, once you hit the turnaround out here at the first loop, the thing that you do have to worry about is just that external stimulus and then it disappearing as you go down this spot out here. So this is the hub on race day, right? So as you turn around here, there's going to be, if you're a mid-pack athlete, there's going to be bikes still coming in, hopefully. It's going to be a fun time. There's going to be athletes and people everywhere. It's going to be great. It's going to be everything you want it to be. As you continue, right, that is going to continue until you cross over the river right through here, and then it starts to quiet down, and it quiets down fast out here. Aside from like a pocket, it's usually right around here, right? So that can play tricks on a lot of people's soul out here. So don't let that ruin your race day out here and keep running your race. Watch these super, super steep hills. You only really got to worry about a couple of them. If you are running around any hills right now, chances are you will be able to run the vast majority of this course. No problem. You're just going to have to worry about the obvious big ones out here on race day. So that is in order, right? If we are talking about uphills, one hill And then once you get to the stoplight hill, the degree hill of motion, or whatever that was, hill number 2, growing back up to this turnaround, hill number 3, and then I would actually classify their 4th hill coming back up to the transition zone out there. Outside of that, the major hills, that's it. You are going to be doing some rolling hills outside of that, but those are the 4 major hills, and you're going to be doing those twice, both up and down. So that is our 2025 Ironman Lake Placid, just quick course breakdown for you. If you have any questions or want to dish about individual things for you, please make sure you reach out to me. Contact info is down below. Of course, like, subscribe, share, all that fun stuff, and we'll see you next time. Good luck, everybody, on the 2025 edition.